Every series has its duds. Seinfeld had the finale, How I Met Your Mother had The Last Forever, and Game of Thrones had its 8th season. But today, we're looking at Breaking Bad. Before we begin though, it's important to note that even Breaking Bad's lowest rated episode is a healthy 7.8. But hey, not every episode works for everybody. That said, here are 10 of the worst episodes of Breaking Bad according to IMDb. Starting with number 10, IFT, Season 3, Episode 3. We'll start off by saying that most fans who don't like IFT feel that way because of Skyler, and by the end of the episode, it's clear to see why. Now, if you're not on the Reddit thread, then you won't know what IFT stands for, but we'll get to that in a bit. For a slower-paced episode, IFT has plenty of subplots to keep track of. Walt moves back into their house without Skyler's consent. Jesse's dealing with the fallout from Jane's death, and Hank dishes out some justice in a local bar. And it's also the episode where Gus holds a meeting with the Mexican cartel to let them know that he plans on having Walter killed when he's no longer useful to him. But let's get back to IFT. One reason why we think the episode gets the hate it does is because of its focus on Skyler's character development. Near the end of the episode, she says 3 words that destroy Walter's ego more than anything else. Ted. As if Skyler didn't have haters already. This episode is listed at an impressive 8.4 on IMDb, and that's a trend you'll see throughout this list. Next up is number 9, Breakage, Season 2, Episode 5. This episode comes in at a healthy 8.3, which isn't bad at all, but for Breaking Bad, anything below a 9 doesn't cut it. Breakage slows the pace down considerably, and that's because it takes the time to set up a series of storylines that pay off explosively at the end of the season. Walt looks at the mounting medical bills and decides that it's time to cook again. Jesse gets a new place to live and becomes really interested in Jane Margolis, his new landlord. And Hank and his team figure out that there's a new drug dealer in town named Heisenberg. The episode also deals with the accounting of drug distribution rather than the meth production and gang violence that the show thrives on. But it sets up the stakes early on for the climax in episode 13, ABQ. Coming up is number 8, Gray Matter, Season 1, Episode 5. This episode also has an 8.3, and we personally consider it one of the most important episodes in the series. So right off the bat, Jesse's looking for a new job for someone with his skills and education. He tries cooking a batch of meth, but it's nowhere as good as Walter's proprietary crystal. On the other hand, Walt and Skyler go to his old colleague Elliot's birthday party, where he offers him a job. But it turns out that Skyler asked Elliot to help him out by offering him a job at Gray Matter Technologies, a company that Walt founded in the first place. So you can imagine how his ego might have been hurt by that. While there isn't much action to be had, the episode's filled with setup and character development and leads to one of the most badass moments on TV. At number 7, we have Bit by a Dead Bee, Season 2, Episode 3. Bit by a Dead Bee deals with the consequences of the previous episode. Grilled. Hank and Jesse escaped Tuco by a hair, and Hank got into a firefight with Tuco and won. It was a solid Breaking Bad episode with a lot of moving parts, but Bit by a Dead Bee slows everything down considerably. Now, obviously, Walt needs a cover for his disappearance, so he goes to a local supermarket and takes off all his clothes. It's one of the weirdest things Walt's ever done, but it makes sense at the same time, since he's pretending he was in a fugue state. And Jesse attempts to get rid of the evidence of him and Walt cooking meth in his basement. Honestly, this episode gets a 9 out of 10 from us because of how Walt, Jesse, and Hank's characters are developed. Now for number 6, 38 Snub, Season 4, Episode 2. Now we know the title of the video is 10 Worst Episodes, but context is really important here. A lot of Breaking Bad's worst episodes are just slow-paced and filled with storytelling and setups. The same's true for 38 Snub, where Walt illegally purchases a revolver, and Jesse's dealing with the guilt of murdering Gail Bedecker in the previous season. The previous episode, Box Cutter, received a 9.2, and we all have Victor to thank for that. Episode 2, however, sets up the core conflicts that'll haunt both Walt and Jesse throughout Season 4. Up next is number 5, Cancer Man, Season 1, Episode 4. We're back to Season 1 again. The first 3 episodes of the series received acclaim because they introduced the show show in a well-paced, explosive way. But Cancer Man slowed things down. It doesn't open up any new plot lines other than the ones that are already established, and it focuses more on Walt as he receives more information about lung cancer. Jesse, on the other hand, tries approaching his parents only to get kicked out by them. We'll admit, this episode goes at a snail's pace, especially when you've seen the consistent tension between our favorite meth cooks and Emilio and Crazy 8. But if the episode were cut out of the series, then it wouldn't work anymore. Coming up at number 4 is Down, Season 2, Episode 4. Down is one of the 4 episodes that foreshadow the tragic finale of Season 2. Here's a fun fact. The titles of the 1st, 4th, 10th, and 13th episodes are strung together to say 737 down over ABQ. It's stuff like that that makes us love Breaking Bad even more. Now, Down is a standalone episode, focusing largely on Jesse and his relationship with his parents. They kick him out of his aunt's house after discovering the meth lab in the basement, and he even attempts to extort Walt by demanding the money he's owed for his work in the previous season. You'd think that any episode featuring Jesse and his antics would be highly received, but this one was relatively low stakes. Plus, the reveal that Skyler kept disappearing for hours so she could smoke while pregnant didn't feel like a satisfying payoff. Next is number 3, Greenlight, Season 3, Episode 4. There's not much action in this episode, but it's best remembered by Walt's attempt to break into Ted's office. It follows right after Ted, and as you can imagine, Walt barges into Ted's office building to confront him about his affair with Skyler. On the flip side, we also see the tension between Walt, Jesse, and Gus rise substantially. And there's also that cringe-inducing scene between Walter and the school's principal, Carmen Molina, where he tries to kiss her. Now obviously it's a reaction to what Skyler did to him, but it's cringeworthy nonetheless. But overall, we think Greenlight offers a balance between action and inaction. It's the beginning of a chess match between Walt, Jesse, and Gus, which leads to one of the best finales in the series. In second place, we have Open House, Season 4, Episode 3. Open House continues Jesse's storyline from the previous episode, 38 Snub, where he throws all-night parties in order to distract himself from the murder of Gail. In this episode, he tries dealing with the guilt by throwing piles of money in the chaos of his drug-fueled house. He later goes go-karting on a nostalgia trip, hoping this brings back some good memories for him, only to fail. On the other hand, we appreciate how much character development Marie receives in this episode, as she resumes her kleptomania by robbing open houses. We've seen that in the previous seasons, but it wasn't explored more fully. It comes back in this episode, and shows how Marie deals with her life crumbling around her. Overall, it's a darker look at some of the comic relief characters, making it one of the more depressing Breaking Bad episodes. Finally, number 1, Fly, Season 3, Episode 10. Surprisingly, this is the only episode on this list with a rating of less than 8, coming in at 7.8. It's probably the only episode that divided the fans into 2 groups, those who love it and those who hate it. And those who hate the episode have their reasons. The creators of the show admitted that it's a bottle episode, where the production doesn't have the budget for more intricate set pieces and other cast members, so it only focused on the leads, Walt and Jesse, their relationship with each other, and their attempt to get rid of a single fly in the laboratory. It's completely different from the rest of Breaking Bad, and offers a look into Bryan Cranston's breathtaking acting skills. It's also about Walter's need for control, and Jesse's more calm, nurturing presence in the series. While others may view it as a waste of time, Fly is definitely among our favorite Breaking Bad episodes. And that's a wrap, folks. Thanks for watching. So do you agree with IMDb's list? Let us know down below. And as always, be sure to give this video a huge like and subscribe to our channel, because we might do a top 10 best episodes of the series. We'll see you then.